Well, hey Mim.
Hiya.
How you doing?
Not bad, not bad.
Good stuff, good stuff. Welcome back to Style Over Substance, guys. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, how are you this week? How's your week been?
It's been a nice week. I managed to flee my flat. I went to Devon for the week to get a nice little change of scenery. And I've got a little cold, so apologies for my voice sounding even worse than usual. But yeah, it was a nice week. It was nice to have a week off and not touch work and all of that stuff. How about you?
Yeah, so my week was same old same, to be honest, but I mean the weekend's been lovely, so that's always a blessing. But yeah, I'm all right. I've just been like planting lavender. And what else?
Oh,
You know how it's like only granny activities over here. So
yeah, I hear you. So what is your fashion story this week, Mem?
Well, I'm sure you've already heard about this, but Gucci turned 100 and they had their show called Gucci Aria. And it was like an ode to Gucci through the years. A bit of a mishmash of everything. It was quite funny. It was quite tongue-in-cheek. Like if you saw it, like the soundtrack was like every song that featured the word Gucci in it, from like rap to like some electro. Also featured its kind of anticipated Will It Won't It collaboration with Balenciaga part of the way through. But so the creative director, from kind of what I could see and what I've read, he was all about exploring like the non-conformist work of Demna Vasilia, who's the creative director of Balenciaga. And because, you know, his stuff is all over the place, but in like a very popular, very modern way. And then hearkening back to that sexual tension and, you know, sex explicit work of Tom Ford, who was like one of the biggest creative directors of Gucci in the past. So yeah, and then we saw like the equestrian iconography, you know, we saw the horse bits and the riding hats, and then you had like the leather whips, of course, which was a bit tongue-in-cheek but also sexy and like, you know, on the mark kind of for Gucci in terms of like horse riding. And also I found out that the Savoy was it was a hotel in London, and Gucci used to work at the Savoy, and that's why you have like the hats with the Savoy and like the sweaters or the tops with the old Savoy logo on it. So yeah, I mean it was quite an ode to Gucci's history. Did you see the show?
I haven't watched the full show because it came out when I was away, but I've seen pictures and it's like a real like nod to logo mania. And it's kind of like all this, it's so wrong, it could be right type of a sort of like look and ode to just, yeah, the logos that we've seen take over, and a really, really fun show. Like I just thought it actually like, it had the playfulness of a fashion show that I'm always like lusting after. And also it's like kind of, it didn't break the internet, but it got Instagram talking for sure. So yeah, it was a really fun show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there were looks that were like plastered with not only Gucci but Gucci's kind of Gucci Supreme print, but then with the Balenciaga, their own version of their kind of logo mania plastered on top of that. And that got people talking, saying that this is just screaming to be like counterfeited. It looks counterfeit. If you know,
Yeah.
then you know, and you can be like, oh, that's the, you know, the centenary show. And people will buy into those collector's pieces. But if you don't know, it just looks like some factory.
Yeah, it looks like a factory doesn't know that Balenciaga and Gucci are separate companies,
Yeah,
type
exactly.
of thing. But that might almost be it. But then also it means the high street can't really do anything to copy it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't really want to see Topshop plastered all
No,
over.
Topshop and Zara.
Yeah. Oh. And another thing that was really interesting about the show was that normally when we see collaborations between like high fashion and like sportswear brands, or like big brands and smaller brands, and like there's this high low, like someone is more popular or higher ranking than the other one, and the smaller brand is able to kind of reap the benefits or exposure of that bigger brand, bringing them along on this collaboration. But this really seemed to be the first time, I don't want to say the first time ever, but within like our lifetime that I ever know of, where you've got these two powerhouses on the same level, owned by the same company, who are just as big and popular as each other, really, decide that they're gonna like collaborate in like joint forces. It was an interesting dynamic, wasn't it? Because normally you just wouldn't see or see one brand who's doing perfectly well by themselves kind of give their secret sauce to another brand. Like when you think about the Balenciaga hourglass bag, you know, that one that's like curved at the bottom, and that had like the Gucci print all over it. So that was a real like proper, like, we are giving you our it bag of the season, and we're allowing you to just plaster your name over our design. It was really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I actually think I'm amazed. Like you said, I'm unaware that if that's happened before, and I'm amazed it hasn't. Now that I've seen it happen and how like well it's sort of combined. Yeah, and I guess as well, this is the benefit of maybe being under the same group, is that there's like almost not a rivalry, because if Gucci's doing well, then Balenciaga's doing well, and vice versa. So maybe that takes some of like that like competitive nature out, because essentially if Balenciaga's figures are low one year but Gucci's are high, Balenciaga can still exist. So like maybe that means that there's like not the fashion sort of rivalry that sometimes we think there might be of performance and stuff.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That is a really good point. I think that when you said you're surprised it hasn't happened before, I think that now it's been done, let's not do it again. Also,
I think we'll see it though.
I know, but then it's like the reason why it works so well is because it was like, this has never been done before. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, this is madness.
This is madness. What are you thinking? Like, and I think that novelty gives it humor, you know, and when it's just going to be played out, I think, a bit too much. And also, like, you run the risk of having two brands seemingly look the same or be indistinguishable from each other, and then you just lose out on revenue, because it's like, why go to Gucci when I can like go to Balenciaga? Or they both lose their essence, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so what's your fashion story?
So my fashion story is that with shops reopening and the world starting to, you know, open up somewhat, Louis Vuitton, or LVMH group, has seen like increase in sales and growth for the first time like since the pandemic hit. They've had a sales surge of 32%. And so that's quite a high surge, and I can't imagine that's obviously only London. So if you are an international listener, our shops opened for the first time sort of last week, so that won't be only driven there, but I also imagine that other areas of the world are kind of maybe getting back there, or because like the end is in sight, you can plan for life post C word. But I think that's great. And actually, like, compared to the same period last year, it's up by 45%. And I can't remember, I don't think shops really closed. I can't remember when shops closed and all of that now. But yeah, it's a big leap. It's a really positive thing. And from what I understand as well, like, LVMH has like done better than anybody else in these figures. So that just sort of shows that people want that Neverfull.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I am surprised in that, as you said, although the UK, we are slowly crawling out of lockdown. Stress on slowly. Crawling. Places that I know, that Paris, I think they're still in their lockdown.
They're in a lockdown, I think.
I don't know about the rest of France. That could be a different situation. But I think Spain's been out for a while.
Yeah.
I think Italy as well. And I mean, the US really never closed except for like New York. But yeah, I agree with you that I think there's a little bit, definitely compared to this time last year, there's a bit more hope. But those figures are
high.
Because LV,
you can shop online.
Yeah.
But
then if we're talking about the group, I guess a lot of that Veuve Clicquot, that champagne, is also being bought maybe for special occasions, and that outdoor barbecue you're having.
Get the Veuve on ice, yeah. But yeah, and obviously the group is a big group, and obviously LV is like the big dog of the group, the top dog. But also I think maybe this is like a real, I haven't got a breakdown of who contributes to that, but I also wonder if that really shows us that like an in-store experience is actually quite important for a customer.
Yeah. I mean, having said that, today I'm actually going to London with like my family, and we are going to browse some shops as well. Like, yeah. So I'm part of the problem, aren't I?
We interrupt this broadcast to remind you, go follow us on Instagram, StyleOverSubstancePod. Shoot us an email, styleoversubstancepeak@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube, find us on Twitter. We've got all the links on our Instagram. You know what to do.
But yeah, so, well, speaking of browsing shops, I guess we have like what I think is a really interesting topic to follow on from our luxury, sort of saving for luxury episode last week, where we're talking kind of like, it's almost like the opposite of like affording your shopping habit.
Yeah, it's like spending. How are you spending? Yeah.
And like most topically, I guess we're talking about like the Klarna generation, other financial
buy now, pay
later are available, but currently Klarna is the top of that. And yeah, we're just kind of going to talk our thoughts on Klarna and other such services, and whether that's actually like a good thing, bad thing, all that stuff. What's your initial sort of 2 cents on Klarna, Mim?
I guess so. We'll like dive deeper into how these platforms work and who they're for and stuff. Yeah. But I think off the face of it, it's kind of treated like an alternative to a credit card.
Sure. Yeah.
It's you buy it now, you pay it off one installment this month, another installment next month, or in some cases, which I don't really understand, like I think PayPal Credit does this. It's like pay one installment now and then pay an installment like in 2 weeks time, and it's like, mate,
Afterpay does that, and I'm kind of like,
I haven't been paid then.
Who gets regular weekly paychecks?
Yeah, so those I don't understand at all.
But that might be like, more for like the zero contract worker.
could be like gig economy workers, or it could be like straddling a paycheck. You're like mid.
Like the like you don't want to spend it all now. But like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So overall, to me, it's like a new generation of credit card off the face of it. Is it for me? No, because I used to have a credit card, and a couple years ago now, I decided it just wasn't for me. And I know that I can see some of the use in it, but I think it can be dangerous because the way it is sold to stores who use it on their website, it's that customers, I think I saw this PayPal figure, and it was like customers spend about 20 to 25% more in a single transaction when they know that they can pay it off in a longer period of time. And I knew that when I had a credit card, I would always clear my balance. I think there was like a couple of occasions where it was like an accident and I didn't like pay off in full. But most of the time I knew I was spending more, putting more in my basket. Because I knew it wasn't like
you had that to fall back on.
It felt like monopoly money a little bit more. So I can definitely see how we can fall into the trap of buying things we don't necessarily need or we're not desperate for because we have that flexibility. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing in some areas of that. It permits you to own something that like maybe saving for doesn't seem viable. And actually you're forced to kind of save for it in that way of paying off over 3 months. But what I will say is I think it does really encourage an unhealthy spending habit. That like it is, say you're going to spend £300, but you only have to pay 100 that first month. I think you'll get disillusioned to the fact that you just spent £300. And I think that's somewhat like worrying. I think it's more, it could be helpful if you want that item and all of that stuff and you could afford it and you're going to pay it off and it's fine. But like there's lots of sort of TikToks around that I see where it's like, oh, it's payday, and then you remember you've got your Klarna to pay off.
Oh yeah, because you can layer them on top of each other.
And also you could pay like 30 days later or whatever it is for Klarna. There's a 30-day later or pay in 3 installments. But like you still have to pay for it. So like when that paycheck comes, that you sort of might be like, and if you're definitely in that zone of like living paycheck to paycheck and that day comes, but then you're sort of like, crap, I've got to pay for my ASOS, my Zara, like whatever it is. I think that could be really damaging. I've definitely used it a few times. And then I think I got to a point where I was like, I was justifying what I was spending because of it. And I actually think that like I don't need anything more. Like I don't need anything. So like I don't need that like justification of, oh, but I'm only spending like £30 this month. And it's like, no, but you just spent £90 on something. Like that's still £90. Like you're paying for it eventually.
Yeah, so I think what's your, like, in your own personal experience, because I haven't used them, like, what was your experience using it? And like, what was the company? How easy was it? What was the process and things like that?
It's super easy. And I would say this is a great thing, but also a huge pitfall that I think I've just seen in the news that this has actually been flared up. Like, let's be honest, you're essentially borrowing money.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there needs to be a lot of terms, not just that scroll, I agree, terms and conditions, but like, I always paid it off like correctly, but I've heard stories where like a girl pays it like 6 days late and she's got this huge like fee, or like her credit score has been affected. And I think that because, like you said, it can be very monopoly money based. I do think there needs to be better silver tape, red tape around. I think there needs to be more regulations. And from what I understand, that's just been called for. And by May, they have to have better regulations. And I think they won't be lending as much money to people. and it will be a tougher like credit score check or whatever they do. And like, I don't know if it's because I'm a bit of like a geek, but I'd actually like to know what you're checking. So like you put in like, I think you put in like your name. I didn't even have to, I don't think I had to even put in my bank details like in the way that I would expect I would have to, just card details, and they run a check. But I'd like to know what you're checking for my own like curiosity, not because I'm skeptical. But it's super easy. I used it on ASOS. It's really easy. And then once it's set up, you can just like keep pressing it essentially. And every now and then, I guess if you reach a limit, they will stop you from using it.
Until you've like paid it down.
Yeah, I guess so. I think they must do an assessing of like again, I don't know what they're assessing, but from other people I've spoken to where they're like, yeah, I had to like pay off stuff to then like move forward with it. But that's where I'm sort of a bit like, it could be a really slippery slope bad habit, I think.
Yeah, I think. But then
I also think if you're somebody where that you're never going to be able to pay like for something up front, and actually there is an interest, like, so the way that Klarna makes its money is charging the retailer, it's not charging the customer, like, then that's a great way of borrowing money. But I think that terms and stuff like that could be really ropey. I really don't know. Like,
yeah, I think it's a good segue into at least outlining like the different options and things that are out there, and kind of more or less how they work. So you've got Split It, you've got Klarna, as you've mentioned, you've got PayPal Credit.
You've got and PayPal has now like PayPal Credit now has like the 3-pay option as well.
Yeah. You've got
and they also do PayPal does the pay 14 days after like you receive it.
Oh,
or, like,
so it's like you pay for it after delivery, which is like 14 days time, or you can take it on credit, and they give you a limit. I think before it used to be like a £400 limit, and you could get 0% on that and whatever. So they work slightly differently, but I think that they are slowly merging into that Klarna,
for sure
format. And then as you said, so these payment options, they are kind of like widgets, little things that are tacked on to the basket area of any website. So you add things to your basket, you then proceed to checkout, and it's there as a payment option instead of like using your own credit card, debit card. And then you can, if you want to go down that route, you register with them, and you don't pay interest if you pay it on time, but you can pay really high levels of interest if you miss your payments. And they do run a soft credit check. So like, if you don't know what that is out there, I'm not a financial advisor, don't
at you,
someone professional, but there's like a hard credit check and there's a soft credit check for serious, expenses and big loans and stuff. They will do a hard credit check, or even like when you take out a phone contract, so they want to know that you're
gonna pay it back.
You're going to pay it back. You've got money coming in, you've got a reasonable amount of money coming out, you're not reckless with your money, you're not being taken to court for not paying. I don't know, I guess like
but that can happen, like that can happen, that if like you're in a situation or you don't agree with a bill provider, like things can go to court. But also like people fall on financial hardships all the time, that like that really can happen.
It's not to say that it's unusual for this to happen, or you're exceptional if you have these sorts of issues, because no one does. But even as like never having any credit history can work against your credit check or your credit score or whatever.
So credit history used to be much more of an important thing that I'm aware of, that like that was kind of the benefit of having a credit card at one point, was to like increase your credit score. But I don't know if like hard credit checks are like as important these days.
I think they are still important. I just think that companies like Klarna are probably figuring out ways to lend money to people without it showing up on your credit history, so they can continue to lend to people who otherwise would not be approved for loans and things. I don't know. That's just me being skeptical, but I do think credit checks do matter, especially when you go for like bigger purchases and more.
But one thing I will say is I think you can also obviously have multiple accounts.
Oh, of like these payment, like buy now.
Well, no, as in like you could have a Klarna, an Afterpay, a Split.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have to find a way to work together.
That's
but like that's a really important thing to like consider, that like if you make a payment on like one day, on the same day as like Klarna, PayPal, then like Afterpay, have they all been able, because you know those things always don't get processed immediately. Have you then just borrowed like
more money than that? Is such a good point. Any one of
then
you guys
should
who
be
work
allowed
in finance, please let us know. For example, if they don't run hard credit checks, and so this check does not come up on your credit history, can you then have another account? You can have one with Klarna, one with Split It, and they're all doing soft credit checks. So none of these are appearing on your credit history. Does that mean that you can have an account with all of them, continue to borrow money from all of them, spend on all of them? You're stressed. And then I would really want to know if some people do find themselves in that situation when they are seriously borrowing more money than they can, and the access to money is just easier simply because it's not showing up on that history. Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So all of these platforms, basically, like we said, they don't charge interest. They make their money from a retailer. I think for Klarna, I think they charge 7% of the transaction. And so again, this is kind of like in fashion, it's that typical sort of elitism that like an ASOS can afford that, because also there will be figures like you just said of like, it's a proven thing that people spend more money. Like that's why we have this sale culture, and that's why we continually see 20% off on ASOS. And like, let's not even talk about the 80% that boohoo.com probably has. But like that, there's a reason that happens, is because it means you think, well, I was thinking about that item, so I will buy it now, but that it's 20% off. And you never would have bought it had it not been. And that's obviously like, that's what entices people in. And this is again, like another way of enticing people to spend money that they maybe wouldn't have. So that's like the incentive to get it and take that financial loss, because it should theoretically like outweigh itself. But for a starting up company, that's a big expenditure to like part with. I don't know if there's also like a fee that like, say no one uses it, they still want money. Like I don't know what the ins and outs are.
I think it is by transaction. From my experience with like kind of e-commerce type things, all these payment processing operators do charge you. They tend to charge you per transaction. Some of them do charge you like ongoing fees, but they're very low percentages. And I think, as you said, it's if you do have customers coming through, because they also position themselves, Klarna do, as we will help bring a new audience to you. Whether it's a younger audience,
because they've got an app, so they're actually really a tech company.
And they help promote their partners who use them. So in theory, it's that, you know, you're getting a new audience, new customers, and they're spending more per transaction with you. So yes, it is a high rate that we're charging you, but you're always making more money as a result of it. It's that kind of like that kind of balance. But yeah, so in terms of who they target towards, I've kind of watched a few other people's opinions on things and gone on the website myself and whatnot. And on Klarna in particular, it says Klarna's playful brand and campaigns ensure you have more eyeballs, and then in brackets, on your store. So that's what they wrote to their partners who are thinking about joining with them. And I thought that was really kind of interesting and telling. As you said, they're like a tech company, and their app is like, it's quite slick, it's quite cute. You've got push notifications to tell you when it's coming out, and it's playful branding and campaigns, as it said, is like, it's not only what like people of our generation and younger are used to, seeing that very playful aesthetic for something which is quite a sober.
Yeah, I mean, it's pink. It's got pink branding, and we're used to seeing anything with finance to be blue.
Yeah, or green, like,
because like it's those like marketing trusted colors, and like it's very clever.
And it's, as it said, it's got an app and all these things which are almost like expected now from a financial company.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like, combined with the soft credit check and combined with that 0% and all that stuff, it makes it quite easy for younger people to get involved. I mean, you have to be 18 and over to use it. I do want to say that. But from my reasoning and like understanding, I first started seeing Klarna and Split Pay and all of that on like high street stores, and it's only kind of now that you see it with like luxury brands, which is kind
it's
of weird.
Starting to make its way onto, like, I think it might be on Matches. I don't think it's probably yet on Net-a-Porter. That might not be their like vibe. I've seen it on a few like shoe websites, like stuff like that. I think the first time I really saw it was maybe on like a Topshop or an ASOS. And that's obviously like one of the big accounts to secure. Zara still does not, other than PayPal. But also, like, I don't think that's like through Zara's choice. They always offered PayPal as an option. I don't think that's them trying to get on that bandwagon necessarily. But yeah, it's a funny one. Lots of shops have joined quite recently, and I don't know if that's pandemic based or the takeoff of Klarna. I have some figures here, or like from this month about Klarna. So it operates in 17 countries. It has 90 million active customers. It has 250,000 retailers it works with. And the total transactions of Klarna processed last year were 53 billion.
Oh my God.
And the projection for like the same for 2025 is 1 trillion. And 42% of Americans have used a buy now, pay later service. So that's a huge, like, that's a huge percentage of Americans. That's on a survey, but like, that's massive.
And you know, when you say that, it makes me think of, you know, you said that you're not sure if Net-a-Porter, I'm not sure if they use it at the moment either. And the likes of Zara is very much, it's fast fashion, but it's kind of in a lane of its own. It doesn't offer a lot of sales,
and it doesn't follow sort of the
same sort of services that a lot of other websites do. And it makes me think there could be a risk of high returns, because e-commerce has high returns anyway, because of just the nature, you can't see the product in real life. But when you're able to throw money at items you don't necessarily need or want, because you have that added flexibility, are you therefore more likely to send it back because you're like, I don't need it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And also, like, I'm not really someone who ever really does this, but we all know there are people who are very much like, if they're seen in something once, they don't want to wear it again. So say you've paying for it in 30 days, you've worn it, you can send it back, and you still never even paid for it. Like, surely it's got to encourage that. I'm not trying to give people ideas.
Oh no, but that's such a good point, because,
and also I've noticed recently that ASOS isn't doing as many swing tags. Like, and actually, I think I even got something for Zara and it didn't have a swing tag. So it's not even now.
Someone's won it already.
No, that like, I think they've just done away with like the successive stuff. I don't know. I think it's an eco move of not having all this excessive stuff on it. But then there's not even like, the tag has to still be on it for it to be returned.
Yeah. I think you made a really good point, and it doesn't give ideas to other people. I think people are probably already doing it. The culture of, for the past year, we haven't gone many places. You still have content creators out there who are doing hauls. You still have content creators who are shooting lookbooks and stuff.
And they must send most of that stuff back.
And they're sending most of it back. And if, as you said, even on PayPal, when you can, you don't, it's not even a credit thing. Like I use PayPal all the time.
Yeah, I use PayPal, especially if you're just ever unsure on a website.
Exactly.
Use PayPal.
It's such a good service. But I could just tick the box and say, no, I want to pay in 14 days.
Yeah.
Because why the hell not? I could if I wanted to. I don't tend to. But if I know that I'm going to get it in like 4 days, I'm going to wear it in my house, shoot a couple looks, tuck the tag in around the back so no one sees it, do my little like IG reels, my TikToks, and then send it back, and PayPal hasn't charged me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
quite enticing, I imagine.
Yeah, and it would be actually interesting to see how store owners, small to medium, small business owners actually feel about if it's brought them any positive change.
I imagine it has. I imagine it outweighs it. I think people who are going to do that kind of return culture do it anyway. I don't think Klarna's probably, or like any of these buy now, pay laters have maybe upped that much, because I think content creators probably did that anyway and just then waited for their refund. But for me, I think also, like, if I was maybe unsure about buying something, that would probably be when I would go to use something like that now, of like, I don't know if I'm going to keep this. This is like a bit of like a out of the box Scarlett like idea. I'll buy it on a buy now, pay later, because I'm not convinced I'm going to keep it. So I don't want to be like sat around waiting for my refund. I can then see a real like an idea of like, that would be a really like enticing, or like that would probably appeal to me, that like, who knows? I've maybe bought some like wacky clothes and that kind of a thing. Especially at the moment, like refunds are taking a bit longer because of like COVID conditions in places. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's helpful for people, but I also think we don't discuss money enough in this country. We're very British, and I actually just, my main fear is that it encourages people to have unhealthy spending. And we've discussed this before. I think we all have a very unhealthy relationship with clothes. Like, the fact that we don't clear out our wardrobe to justify the clothes that we might, if I bought 3 things from Zara, I don't empty my wardrobe of 3 things to do that. I just add them in. And I think the influencer world has made us think that we can justify a £300 shopping spree. And actually that's obscene. And if you want to do that once a season, maybe for some new pieces, but like, that is actually obscene when you think about it. Yeah. And like, hey, I've done that before. Sure. I am not judging people on it. But when you think back on it, like the fact that Klarna can make that seem a little less like dramatic,
a little less painful.
Yeah, is. And then also shopping and all of that stuff, it's addictive. That feeling of getting new things is addictive. That's essentially why probably most of us do it. Like, we don't need another top. We like the feeling of wearing something new. We like the high it gives us. We like that feeling. And then if someone's like, "Oh, looks nice," you're like, yeah. And you downplay it. You never go like, "Yeah, this is brand new. I've just bought this for like £50.
Yeah.
You're always like,
oh, this old thing.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I just think it's
I completely agree with you. I do. Do you think you have in place in your mind, kind of going back to last week when we were talking about what's our limit? What is your limit in regards to, I would never use this service for X, Y, and Z, or I would consider using this for X, Y? I mean, it's different because you've used it before. I haven't.
Yeah.
But,
I think, I guess, going forward, my thing would be, if I wasn't paying this in 3 installments or for whatever it is, would I still be spending this money? I think that's what you have to ask yourself. Like, if that all came out in one transaction, and that's not can you afford it right now? Because that's obviously the whole point of this thing, is that like it allows you to afford something over a certain amount of time. Like, am I mortified by this purchase if it all came out at once?
Yeah.
Maybe it would be like the way I would see that. And for different things in different shops, that's a different amount. We've said that before. Like, there's certain places where I'm like, I'm not spending that money there.
Yeah. I get you.
How about you?
For me, it's kind of different. I think I'm more likely to say, okay, I have my eye on something and I'm going to spend £1,500 on it in one go.
Yeah. So you would use it for like a luxury one-off purchase?
Yes, if anything. But so I'm more comfortable with spending a lot of cash on a one-off transaction than I am opening one of these, because
regularly, like chipping away at that.
Yeah, to me, it's Pandora's box.
Yeah,
you know how we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
It's like, I have had a credit card before, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't like horribly reckless with it. I had a really low limit, £300 the entire time I had it, so it was really low. But that feels like you can spend that, like, you know, like it's that... I always had that, like, if I'm broke, I can always use my credit card. Yeah, and I had to realize with myself, like, it's not for me, and I'm just gonna move away from that and pay it off for the last time or whatever. And so opening one of these accounts would be me going back to an old habit, and that scares me more than me just going into a shop, spending an obscene amount of money, it coming out of my account, and then I'm like, you know what, let me go back to that shop and they can give me my refund in 2 weeks time, and I'll have the cash back in my pocket and I can pretend like this never happened, you know. Like, I think for me, I'm not their customer, and I hope it stays that way. But I can understand, especially with luxury, for me, I'm not doing it on the high street because I feel like I can wait 30 days for my next pay slip and I can probably buy it then. But I think for luxury, if we, as you said, are really bad shopping habits or our approach to shopping, if what we're doing in fast fashion, we can start now doing it with luxury high ticket items. Imagine, like, it can only get worse, right? For like the latest Bottega Veneta cassette or something like that.
I do fear, because like you said, it's really easy to get in like silly ways of spending money, and similar to you, like, I don't ever get myself in trouble, but you do find yourself to be like, I didn't need to spend that money on like on that this month or like anything like that. And that's sort of why I sort of haven't used Klarna now for a little while, of like, I just like something, when you kind of sit and think about it, you're like, I don't think this is the best way for me to be like playing with money. And I think, you know, I hope more people who use it have that realization. I think it can be a really great tool, but I do fear it definitely encourages, like, I don't know, it's this behavior of like and like my dad's always installed in me that you don't spend money before you have it. So it, like, there's like and obviously, you know, you're going to get paid, but also like you could lose your job, like we're in a pandemic, but also regardless, like, companies don't thrive for forever. Like, you can easily lose your job.
Don't spend money you think you will have in the future.
Sort of like my dad's always told me, like, don't spend money before you have it, like, wait for that. Like, even if you've done a job for somebody and you know, like, they're gonna pay you whatever it is, say they're gonna pay you £500, you don't spend that £500 until it's cleared, like, because that might not come in the day that they tell you or whatever it is. And also, like, I've worked for companies and they haven't paid me on my payday. And so in this Klarna world of like you shopping the day, like if you get paid on the last day of the month or the 28th, whatever it is, like, say that money is due to come out, but your work hasn't paid you that day, like that's not great.
Yeah.
So I think those lessons have sort of taught me to try and not play those games. But hey, also a lot of people haven't got other options, you know, like if you want to buy a new telly or like something breaks in your house and you want to replace it, and I think it's a really great solution for people.
I think there are certain things in life that you kind of need, like something breaks on your car and whatnot. Like there are justifiable purchases when we just don't have the means right now. I think in terms of fashion,
you have to look at yourself, maybe.
It's so fleeting and fickle that it's just an interesting topic, and I'd actually love to hear personal stories if they want to.
Yeah, we won't share any names if you do it.
Yeah, of people who've used it and different experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, what did you buy? What was the process? And if you stopped using these services, did you feel a backlash later on? Like, did it negatively affect your
well, that's my big fear of, like, you just don't know what's rumbling under the surface, and there's a lot of trust there. Like, something like a credit score can affect you owning a house or having a mortgage, or say like in the future where you have more of like what I would classify as an adult life, of like, say, you've got your, like, whether it's a family car or like you've got more things for like reliant on you, and you can't afford something that month, and you might need like not a payday loan, but like, I don't know, there are ways of borrowing money, or like sometimes that you need something fixed and you can pay it off in installments or whatever it is. You don't want like your like ASOS addiction, or like the fact that you have to wear a different top around your friends every week to be like impacting that. And I know that's a really boring way to like see things, and you don't want to hear that when you're younger, like, and all of that stuff. Like, it just seems fun, but you just don't know how these things affect things. I think I checked on like Expedia, and if you do want to check your credit score, I think it is free on Expedia.
It is. I'm not doing it though. I'm too scared. I'll do it when I think
mine was fine. And so I was amazed.
Okay.
But then, like, I don't know how reliable all this stuff is. But yeah, like, if you're ever worried about stuff, but like also just like maybe speak to someone who, like, money's a weird topic to talk about, but like, I think if you're ever a bit like, is this safe or sensible for me to do? Does this seem too good to be true? Like, just sound it out with somebody.
Definitely. And you actually said the magic words. You said payday loan, and I thought of, remember like wonga.com and
that was the big thing, wasn't it, of like payday loans,
and they've all been kind of like outlawed now. A lot of them have gone under.
Well, I also don't know if they were sound.
Well, I think they were allowed to operate for a while, and a lot of people were using them, and I think now they've been found to be like not financially safe and reckless, and the interest rates and the APR and all of that they were charging people were just outrageous when you really calculated what people were actually spending on interest. Like,
and that's also then like picking on the vulnerable, because if you're having to take out a payday loan, you don't have the spare money to be paying that stuff, you know.
And it's like, so what's the difference really when we think about, I know that the interest that you would have to pay if you miss a payment on these things can be really high, but I don't think they're as high as payday loans were in the past. But then
I think it's something maybe like it's like £6 added on if you miss a payment. I think it's like a blank charge that might be for like a day, and then I don't know if that gets added on per day. I imagine it will be a bit like an overdraft scheme. Is how I imagine it would be.
But then think about if you only spent £100 and you're getting charged £6 a day or £6 or whatever,
even just one off £6, that's a high, 6%. Like, that's a high interest to be paying.
Exactly. So I don't know if
look at us being FAs.
My God, I know, like that's so funny. Yeah, so it's kind of like people who actually can't afford to buy certain things at a time, and they believe that spreading out payments allows them to be able to afford things in the short term. It's like, when does that become unethical or ethical? And when we talk about it in the context of fashion, it's like, will we see more and more regulation, or it being outlawed? Or is it because it's a big professional tech company with pink color schemes, it's just allowed to flourish?
The regulations are going to be passed. It's an amendment to the credit legislation that was passed in Parliament this week, and it's expected to be published in early May. That they have to have stricter regulations on the affordability checks, more protections, because credit cards actually offer protections for buyers.
Yes, it's like insurance.
Yeah, and this kind of doesn't, and the fact that this is now replacing in-store cards, credit cards for like the Generation Z. I think that, I know it's probably Generation Z, but I can't say the letter Z.
Yeah, England. Yeah, Z.
But yeah, so that's amazing, and I do think it's a great option. But there is a fear in me that, like, in 10 years, we're all going to be like, remember that buy now, pay later? How like that was a con, or that wasn't safe. But Klarna's been going for 16 years.
It has been going for a while.
They just didn't get backers for a long time.
But then, the bigger you get, the more eyes you have on you, and that's the same for everything. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting conversation. It'd be interesting to know what other people have used, if they've used it, what did they buy, and their experience.
Yeah, we'll put out a question on our Instagram for you guys to let us know. And that genuinely, there's no judgment here, guys.
Nah, there's not really.
There's none. Yeah. You tell us whatever you want to tell us.
I think it also, like, sorry, like, not to cut you off, but the more we talk casually about the shitty things we've spent money on, the good things we spent money on, and how it worked out for us, the more we can let go of this idea that people have their finances sorted out, because they're not. Our parents' generations, they were bad with credit cards.
Yeah.
They were. And this is just a new form of an old idea. Really.
Yeah, trust me, like, I make reckless purchases all the damn time. So don't you worry, friends. Don't you worry. Or stuff that, like, is for that holiday that, I literally just returned like a little Zara cord that was amazing, but didn't quite like fit me properly. And I was like, this is like an outfit I'd have to wear on like some really tropical holiday. And let's be honest, I live in England.
Yeah. I had to stop buying summer clothes because of that.
Absolutely no way I can justify like this little, like, it was like a gingham, like, shorts and top little thing. And I was just like, I'd literally have to wear this like in, I don't even know where. Like,